Everyone, we have survived into week 4. Today is going to be the investing talk. I want to say this: I am not an investment professional. If you want to have better advice than I'm going to give you, please seek a financial professional. I'm going to show you some basic stuff. A lot of it's stuff that I've done that's been successful for me. Take it, roll with it, seek other advice as well. Okay? Full disclosure there. Before we kick off, though, we're going to just do a quick review. So week 1 was we found out there's a lot of financial principles within Scripture weaved throughout it. Then we talked about the different types of budgets. We created a zero-based budget. We talked about that. Everyone did their homework. Great job. Week 2 was debt. Why we want to avoid debt. Debt was very bad. We hit that hard a lot. Led to a lot of problems, family, relationships, and really lost opportunities in investments and in the ability to give. Last week, we talked about alien abduction insurance. Basically, insurance is a necessity, and the 3 types you really must have are health insurance, life insurance, and property insurance of some kind. So that's the recap on that. So again, this is week 4. We get to this week and next week, and then we're done. So we're coming to the end pretty quick. We're just going to go over last week's homework, and then any questions you might have on insurance. Then we're going to do some basic investing strategies. Talk about traditional versus Roth and the tax treatment of those. Also 401ks, SEP, IRAs, and other sort of vehicles for investment. And then we'll get into a little bit about mutual funds, stocks, that sort of thing. And then again, you'll have your homework section of finding your retirement accounts and see where you're at. So with that, you're to identify all the things in your life that needed insurance, look at your current levels, ask yourself if it's adequate, and then, the same questions: what was difficult, what was easy, was there any surprises for you, and do you have any questions or things you want to talk about? So we're going to just go around the room and hand off the microphone to folks and see who has what. Start over with Kristen. No questions. Okay. That's fine. No one at the table wants to talk. Okay. Yeah, you can start with men. I don't care. Start whoever you want.
Is that the right way? Okay. For us, one of the things that we did is we lowered some of the coverage that we had on our automobiles since they were paid off, and so we ended up saving ourselves about $1,400, $1,500 a year on because we were overinsured on some things that we really just didn't need. I had to actually argue and fight a little bit with my insurance agent to get that done. So expect that if you do go that direction, they will sell you enough insurance to, as much as you want, way more than you want on some things. So,
They don't like it when you cut insurance levels, ever do they?
no. And he immediately also tried to sell me some other stuff too. And some of it was actually, there's a GL policy that we're gonna probably do, but he was wanting to kind of fall back some stuff on some other things, and it was like, man, look, I just don't need this. And the same thing last year we did with our house. I had to really argue and fight and go through our homeowners insurance with a fine tooth comb because they were insuring things like our fence, and at the time there was a fence that we had that was there was absolutely no reason to insure this fence. It was 4 panels, but I was paying for that, and so I kind of threatened him a little bit and told him some not so nice things. But anyway, we got some of that changed. But I mean, it was to the tune of a couple $1,000s, and it's like, okay, am I willing to have a conversation with a guy for $2,000? Yeah, I'll have that conversation, and I'll fight and go back and forth a few times. But so for us, that was that. And then we've got some life insurance stuff that we're looking at um, to determine. So we have all of that stuff, but some of it needs to be brought up to date. So some of it was cutting some coverage, and there's probably going to be some coverage.
Yeah, for us, I think the exercise was valuable in figuring out how much life insurance you need. Whenever I was looking at, like, for our benefits, we get 2x salary. in my mind, I was like, okay, that's adequate. It's fine. Like if I go, you can pay off the house, but you're not setting up. I wouldn't be setting up Abby for anything beyond that. So going through that exercise really helped me see like, okay, whenever I go, I really need to have everything set up so that anybody who was depending on me, it's like they don't have to scramble to get things in order. So you got time, you can use all the funds that you get. So um, I got a lot of value out of that part.
Worth more dead.
That's the way you're supposed to be.
We didn't have a whole lot of time to review everything, but I would like to know a little more about calculating the life insurance for Kristen as a homemaker.
Sure. So here's what I would say to figure that out. What's it going to cost you to replace the contribution she makes at the home, right? And that's probably going to look like about $50,000 a year to hire someone more or less full time to look after all the household needs, which means you're going to want probably at least $500,000, $600,000 of a policy, because if you have to go through that route, you're going to take that lump sum and you're going to invest it in such a way that you just take off the earnings, the interest off that investment to pay for it. So basically, if you're to look at investing that in an S&P 500, which on average gives you about 11% a year return, then you can peel off, 9, 10%, and you should be right around that 50,000 a year mark, thereabouts. What are these guys? All right. No one wants to talk? Everyone good? Any other questions? Anything? Okay. Then we'll just move along if everyone's good. All right. Thanks for sharing. So investing is really important. It's so important it gets two little scripture pieces. Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent certainly lead to advantage, but everyone who is in a hurry certainly comes to poverty. Also in Proverbs 31:16, she considers a field and buys it. From her earnings, she plants a vineyard. Why is investing so important? Investing sets you up for a dignified retirement. It is the cornerstone of everything we're doing. We have to invest. There you go. It's so you have a dignified life when you can no longer work, right? Government will always look after you. If you don't do this, government will look after you. This might not look like the way you want it. Seriously. So let's talk traditional versus Roth. The difference is the tax treatment of retirement when it comes to the difference between Roth and traditional. One taxes the growth and one taxes the contribution. So in traditional retirement accounts, they'll tax the growth with the benefit of you reducing your current taxable income. So the bet is this: you're going to lower your current high tax rates in that you will withdraw your retirement at a lower tax bracket. And that worked really well for a lot of people about 30 years ago. Roth retirement accounts have the contributions taxed at current rates, but all growth is tax-free. That's the difference.
What is Roth?
Roth is just the name of the accounts. It's a legislative thing. Some legislator named it. I don't really know the breakdown of it. Good question. So let's talk about traditional versus Roth, how this looks. In your traditional individual retirement accounts, your IRA, you're going to invest something for 30 years, or you're going to invest 30 years with $7,000 per year going in at 11% return. So it looks like this. From age 25 to 55, you invest $7,000 a year, you get $1.5 million. That's minimal investing. That is some of the most lazy investing you can do. Okay. The Roth, you can invest for the exact same way. The difference between the two, again, the first one, your growth is going to be taxed. This one, Your growth is not taxed. Same parameters, you get 1.3 million. You say, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Why the difference between the two? Simple answer is because industry calculators suck. They're stupid. Okay. Here's why. When you talk about your traditional, it's saying, well, you put in 7,000 in there, so therefore, full amount will calculate out that growth from that. They say, well, with the IRA, with the Roth, you had 7,000 reserved for it, but you took the taxes out front of it, so you actually invested 5,250. No, folks, put $7,000 a year in these things. So the growth is the same. It's just these calculators will spit out two different numbers. Don't be fooled by that. Your Roth will grow the same way. If all the parameters are the same, it'll grow the same way. Does that make sense? So which type of account should you use? If you're young, Roth all day long. Use a Roth if you're young. Absolutely. There is no guarantee the tax rate will be less. Yes. Define young. That's okay. The question was define young. Let's see. I am officially middle age. I'd say under 50. Really. I mean, if you've got, a 20-year timeline or more, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, like I was saying, there's no guarantee the tax rate will be less in retirement than it is now. In fact, I think all of us can say in our lifetimes we've seen the tax rates go up and up and up regardless. So the bet is have tax-free growth. If you have less than 10 years of retirement, you might want to be looking at a more traditional way to reduce your current higher taxes. So it's going to be a judgment call, but that'd probably be my guidelines on that. Any questions left before we move on to this next section? Okay. So we're talking about the different vehicles for investments. So there are multiple types of retirement accounts. Depending on what industry you're in, if you're private, public sector, there's a lot of different vehicles you can invest in, but the end game is the same. You're saving money for a later day. So let's talk about it. 401k, employer-sponsored account. A lot of us know what this is. Pretty common. You work for a company, they have a 401k plan, they match some of it, you invest in it. By the way, some of them can be Roth or traditional. A lot of corporate America now has moved to where you can have both. You can have a Roth option to it, which is nice. IRAs, individual retirement accounts, these are just the same sort of thing. You do them on your own. Cool thing is 401ks are a little bit limited in some of the investment options because your company dictates what you can invest in. In your IRAs, that's you. You can invest in pretty much anything you want in the market. So you have, probably 10,000 different options to choose from there. 403bs are for employees of public schools and nonprofits. Very similar function as the 401k. Savings instead of match plan for employees. Simple IRAs. They're designed for small businesses. What's really cool about these, I can't remember the actual totals, but it's something like over 50,000 a year you can contribute to these things. So if you're self-employed and you're able to stuff a lot of money, you can stuff a lot of money into retirement here. Whereas your IRAs, you're limited to, I think it's 7,000 or something. It might be going up, but you're limited to how much you can do per year. With these simples, if you're self-employed, you can stuff a lot of money away to retirement. SEP IRAs allows employers to make contributions on behalf of their employees, including themselves, if self-employed. So if you're self-employed and you have an employee, then you can do the SEPs. One thing about SEPs, though, whatever you contribute to yours, you have to match to your employees. So if you're stuffing 53,000 into yours, you got to stuff 53,000 into your employees. So just keep that in mind if you're ever in that boat. So the question is, if you had 10 employees, could you split it up? And no, it would be each person. Yeah. 457Bs, these are for state and local public employees. These, from what I understand, these are more of like a pension type situation. You're very limited. I believe I got the public employee nodding. So yeah. Hang on, let's get you on the mic so you can talk.
So it's my understanding of the plan that like what I'm on is that the government, i.e., the state government of Texas, sets the retirement contribution rate. Currently, it is set at 8.5% of your gross income, your gross wages. So, however, in my particular situation, they'll match that. My employer will match that. So there's my contribution will match that up to 8.5%.
So you're mandated a certain amount that you have to contribute, right?
Yep.
Okay,
So there's a
got
certain
it.
amount that I have to contribute, and there's a certain amount that the state or my employer can match.
Got it.
So if I remember correctly, based off what I saw, they're taking out 8.5%, and then right off the top, and then they're also my employer is matching 8.5%. So
Okay.
there's 17% going into that account every month, which I think comes up to about $1,600 a month into that, and it grows. It does
Oh,
have an exponential
oh
growth.
darn! They force you to save for retirement.
And then the other key factor is that your annuity at retirement, when you get full benefits, is based off of an average of your top 5 salary years. So if your salary keeps going up, your annuity goes up.
Perfect. No, thanks for sharing that, man. Because yeah, I'm not super well versed in that, so that was excellent.
Worth talking about 401k. I was looking through to make sure that you didn't get to this, and if you're going to, and if I just missed it, let me know. But on a 401k, I think it behooves everyone to take the maximum amount that their employer contributes. If you
Yeah.
have employer contributions, you would be an absolute fool not to take free money and contribute that amount to your 401k. If they're matching that, that's free money. You're doubling your money immediately.
Yeah, I think that is worth mentioning. Absolutely. And I didn't put it in the things. 'Cause I want to keep it a little bit simple, but yeah, let's talk about that for a second. So if your employer has a match, so I'll give you an example. My employer will match dollar for dollar to 4% of contributions, and then a 0.5% up this for the next 2 percentage points. So if I put in 6, they put in 5. Okay. And so I put in 6 into that so I can get my match of 5% from them. And then everything else, I go and do my IRAs, I do my other investment accounts, that sort of thing. So yeah, free money is free money. You may as well get it. And I think that's a good point. Hit that first, get that free money, and then do your other things. So yeah, excellent. Any other questions on that one? So inside all of these plans are various options for investments. Some are more restricted than others. Like we talked about, the 401ks tend to be a little more restricted. The employer only lets you choose from maybe 12, 15 different options. However, all of them have some kind of access to mutual funds, targeted funds, bonds, and cash accounts. So let's talk about these mutual funds and whatnot. So what should you invest in? You may ask yourself. Things that grow consistently over time. Simple, right? So let's talk about mutual funds. What are they? They're a financial tool where shareholders pool their money to invest in a mixture of stocks, bonds, money market instruments, that sort of thing. It is controlled by a fund manager who chooses the investments. Okay? So basically, it is just a pool of stocks that someone manages for you. Exchange traded funds, ETFs. These are pools of a group of securities into a single fund that can be traded like an individual stock. So what does that mean? That is essentially, think about pick an industry. Let's pick housing, and so they'll say, "All right, I'm going to create a stock, and it'll be comprised of a bunch of different real estate investment trusts, and this is going to be a housing stock, and that's how it's traded." So yeah, again, they function more like an individual stock with daily price fluctuations, but they have lower expenses than buying all of the individual stocks. So you can buy an ETF and achieve the same thing as buying, 15 of the same types of stocks that are already in that ETF. Let's get to the stocks. They are a security that represents ownership in a fraction of the company. So shares represent ownership or units of the company. So again, the example is this: if the company has 1,000 shares to its name, you own 100 of those shares. You own 10% of the company and are entitled to 10% of the proceeds and assets of that company. That's all it is. That's all a security is just a share of that company. So which do you buy? A mix of all of them. Okay. You have a question? What's up? What's this question?
So with the stocks, does everyone have stocks or do only like certain people buy them?
So everyone can buy stocks, and all these things like mutual funds are comprised of stocks inside the mutual fund or stocks inside the ETF.
Okay, but um, what do you make money off of the stocks
Hopefully
or
you do. That's the idea. So yes, the idea is to invest in these things in companies that grow over time, so you generate money off. And some stocks, some don't. Some lose money, and so you lose money on them.
but what if that company sells it? Do you get that money or do you lose the money or what
Okay, I
happens
think
to
we'll
it?
go into more detail on that on a one-on-one discussion because I think we got to go through the basics of what a stock is for you. Fair enough. Okay, we'll talk about it later tonight. So the question is, how do you determine that mix? So for beginning investing, I would suggest that you focus on mutual funds and ETFs that have a 10 plus year history of growth that outperforms the market or their market sector. So, you want to break down the categories between growth and income, aggressive growth, and international. And, you can play with the ratios all you want. It doesn't really matter. Just have some kind of a mixture of all three sort of categories. So it kind of looks like this. So this is just I don't even remember what stock this is, a blue chip stock of some sort. And you're looking at it and it shows you what it's done year to date, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, etc. But we're looking at the 10-year and since inception. And you're seeing that it's done 22% a year on average over the last 10 years. And in comparison to other large growth and S&P 500 indexes, it has clearly outperformed those that have done 15 and 14% in the same period. So my approach to this is not real scientific, folks. If it beats the market, if it beats the other categories in the industry, I will buy it. If it doesn't outperform it on a long-term basis, I'm not going to buy it. It's that simple. Now, you can do all sorts of fancy things with this. You can talk to investment professionals and they'll tell you different things. That's fine. But from my very basic looking at this is all I'm going to look at is it beating everyone? And if it's at or beating it, it's a good investment in my mind. Make sense? The mark, yes, I'm calling the market the S&P 500. Yes. All right. So how do you search out these things? So this is just a little things. I use Schwab a lot for my stuff because it's just a really cool layout. But basically, you can pick different fund categories and you can tell it to look for large growth, large value, whatever you want, right? And you can tell it to what kind of returns you want on this, what annual rates you want on the 10 years or whatever. And it'll kick back how many how many mutual funds or stocks meet those requirements. So then you can go click in them and look at individually. There's a lot more to it that we can get on more detail one-on-one in breaking down the individualities and evaluating these things. Just know that the actual search and sort of basic analysis of this is not really complex. You can easily narrow down to the basics and search out what's going to give you the best return. All right, folks, homework time. You're going to find your retirement accounts if you don't know where they're at. Get access to them if you don't already have it. Figure out how much you have in them, and ask yourself and see if it's been growing, and how has it been growing. And then come back next week to discuss. So, review. Investing in personal finance is the cornerstone to having a dignified life when you can no longer work. A dignified retirement is our goal. How your tax determines if you select traditional or Roth accounts. There are multiple types of retirement accounts in the US that are dependent upon the organization you work for. In retirement accounts, investments tools can be limited depending upon the type account it is. However, as a general rule, you can select from any array of mutual funds, ETFs, stocks, bonds, that sort of thing. You always want to select investments that outperform the market on a 10-year average or longer. And these are some of the places I go. So Charles Schwab I use. You don't have to use Charles Schwab. Fidelity's out there. Amerifunds is out there. All do sort of same sort of thing brokerage wise. Calculator.net's really great for some IRA calculators to give you some guesstimates of what things would look like if you invest different amounts of money over different periods of time. And Bankrate is a wonderful place to find all sorts of different types of calculators, not just for retirement, for amortizations, mortgages, that sort of thing. So take that as you will. With that, questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
So, quick question on the slide where it was talking about um, in the beginning phases of investing to target more aggressive uh, growth. When do you start determining maybe I should change my strategy from less aggressive to more conservative investments to hold on to what you've grown to that point?
Sure.
Whether it's like a monetary value or an age. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
So my personal philosophy, I don't. And here's the reason. I'm investing across a section that I know on average is going to outperform the market. Some years are going to be down, some years are going to be up. As long as I'm only peeling off the growth of that, I don't have to worry about it. It's because I was going to long term continually to grow. So I know what you're saying. Like my father-in-law was very much in that school. As you age, I'm going to get more into cash and real conservative things, and so I don't lose my money. And I understand that philosophy, I really do. But the thing is, especially at your age, by the time you get to be in your 60s, 70s, you're gonna be a deca millionaire. It's not going to matter the hill of beans for you. You're just going to leave it sit, let it do its thing. That's the way I look at it. Again, there's other advices to it. You know, ask other opinions.
Traditional portfolio theory would say, um, like if you look at a target fund, for instance, or something like that, I'm not a fan of, but modern portfolio theory, if you're familiar with it, um, ended up being renounced by the guy who created it. It, um, but it is the cookie cutter investment advisor philosophy that they would say what Travis said. You know, as you get older, you start reallocating away from uh, stocks or things that I mean, you can have we have had in my lifetime 50% drawdowns in the S&P 500. Okay, actually, we've had 3 or 4 that I can 2 that I remember distinctly. But and what happens is if you have an equity portfolio and you need to begin taking income off that, you're having to liquidate stocks at the worst possible time when you're at a 50% cut. And just to kind of if you want to play math games for a second, what percentage return do you have to have offer if your portfolio loses 50% of its value? What kind of return do you have to get back to even to where you were? You have to have 100% return off the bottom to get back to where you were. So it is absolutely true that over the course of time that the S&P's return, depending on how you calculate it, 8 to 11, maybe even 12%. It all has to do with when you start. That makes a
Sure.
big difference, right? And what you think with inflation and stuff like that. But for the normal investor and stuff, if you're spread out enough and diversified enough, there are also ways of dealing with equities. And Travis and I've talked a lot about this, where you can also devise an account that is a forever equity account that's kicking off dividend income, which is also tax advantage. If you want to do something in addition to these tax preferred accounts, and you're not limited to that. You can actually just you can just go out and take money and put it in an investment account that works like a bank account, but you're just buying stocks or you're buying equities or you're buying whatever you're buying. And there are a lot of people, really wealthy people, that do that because they have all this money, they don't know what to do with it, or they need something to do with it. They need it to turn off cash flow, and what they do is they put it in.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. I mean, it's this is sort of your intro to it, right? There are a lot of different investment tools, so you're not going to be 100% locked up in just a IRA or 401k or whatever. You should have other things going on, like Cody was talking about, is things that I've done as well on the side where I buy aristocrat stocks, I buy X amount of dollars worth, and I just go stock by stock and round year after year. And I think the aristocrat list is like 50 different stocks or something right now, and they kick off dividend year after year, and over a lifetime, it adds up. Steve's got a question there. What's that? These are companies that for 20 years plus have kicked back a dividend on their earnings every single year. Growth dividends, yeah, sorry, growth dividends. So, so it's basically there are a lot of more like blue chip, consistent blue chip growth type stocks that you're talking Coca-Cola, Caterpillar, Walmart. These are sort of the types of stocks to be in that. Bobby's got a question back there.
If you have kids, I would recommend a 529. It's for not only college, but you can use it for any private school. And ours are currently growing between 22 and 26% a year. It's been great. Probably trade school
Yes,
as well.
trades actually just recently trade schools are opened up into the 529 plans as well. Yes, absolutely.
They're very flexible. And would you recommend precious metals?
Yes and no. Okay, let me tell you my philosophy on it. Precious metals for me are an extremely small portion of my investments, and they are physical. And it's designed for if the monetary system breaks down, we go to the zombie apocalypse, I got some money. Okay, that's what I do with it. I know another philosophy, a guy I knew really well. His philosophy was, I've got 3 children, I have 3 safes, and each safe is I just buy gold and silver and firearms, and my kids inherit a combination lock. That was his philosophy. Okay, it worked out for his kids. He did this since he was probably in his 20s, and he died in his 70s. So I think it probably worked out for them. But if you're going to do precious metal investing, I personally don't like paper investments on them because we just saw what happened with gold and silver here this week. I mean, it dropped 40, 50% within days. So,
Yeah, just a thought. If something's making 26% interest annually, that you're doubling your money every 3 years.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. Oh, we got a question up here. Oh, Penny's going to run today.
Okay, so for little girls,
Yep.
I don't necessarily want Everly to go to college. So,
Okay.
but if she does, that's fine. But I wouldn't. So 529. I don't know exactly for her. Like, what would be another option that I could put money aside?
So if you didn't want to do 529, you can literally put cash aside into a money market account or something, but it's not going to grow well. I still suggest 529 plan, even if you don't think your daughter's going to go to university or something. And here's why. So is there to say that she's not going to do some kind of courses like learning really good financial practices, going to cooking classes, going to do other things? These things cost money at a college still. So still do a 529 plan. Just know 529, whatever she doesn't ends up using, can be transferred to a sibling, to a parent, or what have you. So I still suggest loading up 529s for all your kids. And one of your kids are going to be a freaking genius, and they're going to spend $900,000 in university, sort of thing. And so you can shift the funds towards them. The other kid's going to do something different completely that takes $10,000 in training. So that'd be my advice. Yes, you can transfer those 529s around to a lot of different people and stuff. It's definitely, like Cody was saying, it's loosened up a lot. The rules loosened up. It used to be, once upon a time, it was just between siblings, and now it's opened up to, yeah. Yeah. Hey, can we get that on the microphone? Because I'm not going to be able to recap that.
So with the 529s, I think as of last year or the year before that, you can now roll them over to Roth IRA accounts. And it does go towards your yearly contribution. So you are limited to $7,500 this year. Next year, if it's the same, 7,500. So depends on how much you have in the 529. You can only roll over the contribution limit. I think there is a total limit to it. So it's like a combination of all of it is something like 30 something $1,000, I think.
Like a lifetime maximum sort of thing.
Yeah, so you can't exceed that in your rollover. But say you only have, 30 something thousand, over time you can roll all of that over to a Roth IRA. So you still get the benefit of it, um, even though you may not put it in the Roth IRA in the first place. Per individual.
No, and with the Roth, even if she's not eligible to, like if she didn't want to take the money out of it, you can borrow against that money and pay herself back. So that money is hers, right? She has it, and she could borrow against that for a house payment or for a house down payment or something like that. Or you could withdraw it and pay the penalty, but be better off to borrow against it, pay yourself back, or there are preferred lines of credit that can go along with that. Roth has a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, and I'm going to add something too. I mean, you folks with kids, open up an IRA account for your kids. I mean, we did the math on it. If you open up an IRA when your kid is born, I mean, that kid's going to have something like $10 million or some crazy thing if all you did was $100 a month for their entire life. That's really lazy investing, but you can make them a decamillionaire at $100 a month for doing $100 a month for 60 years or whatever. So, I mean, we've done that with our kids. We open up IRAs. There are some limits and contribution stuff. You got to be mindful of that. But I mean, $100 a month goes a long way setting your kids up for a kickstart down the road. Trump pays you $1,000 to have a baby in 25 and 26. 2025 to 28. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Good discussions. Great discussions. Anyone else have any questions? All righty. Do your homework. See you next week.